Okay, go.
I had like the plastic owl that's behind you right there on the, go around and take a picture of the front of the owl. It's screwed on there, you ain't gonna. You see that plastic owl right there? I have a skull that's just like that plastic owl, a little skull. Okay, and I take silicone 1, it's in a tube. And I squeeze silicone 1 into a small plastic container. And I take naphtha, which is, you can get any hardware store naphtha, okay? It's a paint thinner, oiled down, it thins down oily based substance. Squeeze some silicone 1 into the plastic container, pour a little bit of naphtha, get a wooden get a wooden popsicle stick, stir it up real good, okay? And then take your little plastic owl or plastic skull, and oh, and I put a little bit of red acrylic paint inside the silicone, so it's what made it turn red. And you just brush this back and forth over the plastic, okay? And that's your first coat. You do like 2 coats with the naphtha. Then your coats after that, to make it thick, like this, to get that thickness, is you mix up your silicone 1 and you put about 3 or 4 drops of glycerin in it. And you can get glycerin at Hobby Lobby. It's in the soap making areas for making homemade soap, okay? And so anyway, you just keep putting this silicone all around the plastic skull, and as you can see, it gets a little bit of the shape of the skull, obviously. And on the inside, you can see it really picks up all that detail, all that real nice detail inside the silicone. And you can see the eyes, you can see the teeth. And if you really get in here and look, you can see the veins from the skull, you know. But so it's pretty good for a cheap version of silicone. And then once you get it to the thickness you want, okay, just take a razor, slice it open, pull the skull out, leave yourself a pore hole. Oh well, before you take the skull out, you got to do your plaster mold, but that's a whole nother issue, doing a plaster mold. Okay, we'd have to totally videotape that a separate time. But anyway, so here's the silicone that's left over, okay? And you put your little registration keys on there. And so now I can put my rubber mask inside my, okay, and then I have my mold banded up. And you can pour in resin, you can pour in a couple of different mixes to get a result. I tried ceramic slip. It didn't cooperate with the silicone, so now I'm gonna do a Hydrocal mix, and I think that should work because I saw a guy do it with some plaster, and that's basically what Hydrocal is. So Hydrocal is, let's see, what's it telling me? 2 part dry to 1 part plaster. So you always put your water first, add your Hydrocal. You're gonna see it's gonna bubble. And I'm going to keep putting it in there until it gets to about the thickness, so it doesn't soak up any more water. Once it becomes where it's not soaking up water anymore, and I'm not going to mix it right now, we'll just let that Hydrocal just soak in there. Okay, now the water has already soaked up real good, all of the Hydrocal. It's nice and creamy now. Maybe the consistency is some thin pancake batter. I'm just trying to go in here and see if there's any lumps. You don't want to mix it too fast because it just starts to, you know. But yeah, see, that's a nice creamy mix. We're gonna pour. It's called a pour and slosh technique. Someone go get me some water.
Put some water in that.
Yeah, I just need to get the water off of this.
You want water in here?
Yeah, if you want to rinse that out real good. So now I'm gonna just kind of slosh it around. You kind of want to move it around and so it gets all up into that silicone mold real good. Hydrocal will stick to your mold, so you want to try to keep that as clean as possible. So just sloshing it around so it's getting all the walls of that. And I'm not going to leave it solid. I'm not going to leave all that hydrocal in there. I'm going to pour it out, pour the hydrocal out. Yeah, so you'll see that hydrocal is starting to thicken up in there. And again, I'm just going to be moving it around. So I'm trying to get all these areas. It's kind of almost like if you're pouring slip. And just at about the right time, it's really kind of hard to say, I will pour, well, the majority of this hydrocal out. And that way it's not as thick, but it's still a little ways away from pouring it out. But you can see that it's that hydrocal is beginning to. But I tried that. I bought a whole bunch of slip, and I'm going to make one where I can use the slip, but I'm not going to use the silicone inside. I'm going to use just make a plaster mold and pour the slip straight up into the plaster mold. And a little bit up in there, you can see that nice little void. And when I turn it over, gravity, it just kind of push this mold and that silicone right back in. Just want to try to clean some of this hydrocal off of my mold. Not pretty quick. Now it's getting to about a pasty substance. Well, it's still curing because you can feel the warm air coming out of the hole. So it's still curing. It will probably cure for another 2 or 3 days until it's really cured up. But I believe if I haven't stuck my mold together with the hydrocal, that we should be able to open up the mold fairly easy, and it feels nice and firm. It's still real warm, so it's definitely still curing and setting up. You don't want to be real fast. It's pretty sturdy stuff. But now, basically, we should be able to just peel off the silicone. And we have one little tiny hole, but that's a pretty easy fix right there. Just put a little plaster. We'll go inside, put some plaster behind it, and there is your skull replica right there. That's it. Other than that little thin spot, we can fix that. We can fix that no problem.